Hello, everyone. You might be relieved to at long last see that I am doing a Limited Nationals Day 3 breakdown video. So we're going to go through each of these stage by stage. These are presented in the order that I actually completed them. So this is I'll be able to give my concise thoughts on what I was doing strategically and what was going through my mind when I was shooting these kind of in order. This first stage that we have here is a standard exercise. Is 2 strings. Essentially, you have to shoot from each box, engage each target with 1 round with each respective hand. I started off and did the strong hand first. So have a look at what this looks like. As you can see, there's a mandatory reload in between, and you have to do that same thing over with the sport hand. As far as other than that, this is pretty unremarkable. Like I was played it pretty safe on the strong hand to try to pick up a lot of points because it's not a super sure thing shooting weak hand. I chose to do this in the same way, in the same direction on both sides. Essentially just picking up alphas and close.
Stand by.
This was fairly controversial, making people do single-handed left, moving reload. Some folks chose to put the gun into essentially their right hand, conduct a reload normally while moving, and then put it back in their left hand. I thought this seemed pretty easy to do. If you really zoom in, you can kind of see what I did here. I shifted my grip a little. I used my middle finger to hit the left side mag release, because that's all I got. Reach over, basically grab a mag like, sort of like a upside down, if you will, so that it's bullets facing this way in my hand, and then just tip the gun up as much as I could. Let me get rid of this tool. Tip the gun up as much as I could, and basically make the insert, stick it in. Just basically get the mag started into the gun, and then give it a good slap just to really make sure it's seated, and then sort of build the grip back up and have it back on my eye line by the time my feet are where I need them to be. You see I played that pretty safe on the pacing on the shooting there too. So this is kind of a goofy stage, but it was one of the more controversial and most talked about ones in the match. And this was one of the first stages I shot. A good score here picked me up a few points for sure, which was good to do early in the last day. All right, this is the second stage of the day. This was by far the biggest and most intimidating stage of the whole match, with really, really risky sections here. So just to briefly overview before we even go through this, essentially you can see, shoot some stuff up here, some fairly easy targets. You come down here, and on both the sides of this wall right here, there's a swinger that presents here and here, which were very, very quick. In the match that happened prior to this, they were partialed up with tuxedos. In this case, they were open, but they were still very fast. And where you're shooting at them from right here, you can see they're about 15 or so yards away. And then after that, the stage kind of goes on. You do some regular shooting and shoot each swinger from each respective side. So we'll watch this all the way through. So I was about, I think 5 to 6% back on this stage, and this is a sort of stage where, and this stage, like most of the rest of the stages in this match at this point, I could take the temperature of the room, and I realized that a lot of people were down compared to sort of where the head of the match was, and a lot of people were going to start to make really big mistakes, especially based on how risky these stages are. So from this point forward, I take a pretty backseat sort of approach. I'm not trying to really lay down super fast runs, especially not on risky stages like this. I'm just trying to take it easy and not make any huge mistakes. So you can see in my technique, in a lot of places, I'm playing this very safe. Right off the jump, my draw wasn't quite perfect. I had to do a little bit of an adjustment on the way up there, so my forehand isn't fully on the gun until it's all the way to my eye line. Slow draw. I leave this position, right? Got another stage here. Basically, you're shooting at some fairly easy targets while moving all the way down, left and right, off both sides of this stage here, until you get down to this last position where there's a swinger sequence with a whole bunch of steel. You'll see right here, I'm not trying to like make a ton of progress on this. I'm playing this super safe. I'm only like basically shooting as fast as I can shoot, plug pretty much guaranteed points. Get down here. I shot activator. They ended up doing, you can't quite see what happens because this big banner's in the way, but I shot both these activators essentially in turn. So I shot popper, popper, 2 shots on this swinger, 2 shots on this swinger. Okay. And then I didn't quite like what I saw when I did that. So I gave each side 1 more shot just to be totally safe, because in the match that happened prior to this, these were set up kind of similarly, and I left a risk out there and it did not pay off. So I wanted to be, again, just making sure, extra sure that all those shots are where I want them. I'm pretty sure I had 3 hits on each. One of them was 3 alpha, 1 was not. But at this point, I'd rather have 3 A's than an alpha mic or a Charlie mic or something like that. Right, so you see this is sort of a continued pattern here, just playing this very safe, letting everyone else make mistakes, just kind of seeing what happens come the last few stages of the match. So on this stage, it was a little bit wonky. They've been doing frequently, they do this thing where they make you shoot the last couple targets in a stage with one particular hand. And I believe in this case, they made you shoot strong hand for the last 3 targets. So basically, you could start in the right section of the stage over here, or you could start in the other end of this L down in this hallway. So I shoot some open paper here, and then I come to this middle section where there is a single popper, an activator that comes in a bobber right here, and then an open paper. Okay, so we'll see what happens. Alright, so this stuff, shoot very conservatively, alphas close Charlies, power back into this position. Basically, everyone else on the squad chose to engage this popper, this popper, paper, and then the bobber, because most people at this point were clawing to try to pick up a bunch of points, and I wasn't really into that. And the plan that I chose, I still think was great. The only issue was that I edged this activator popper right here. I hit it like right on like this edge right here. Let me clear this stuff. I hit it right about there. With a round, so it fell really slow. So you can see when I come over, I hit it, I look to where the bobber should be, right, and I look back at it, and then I see that it's starting to fall, so I go back over and I shoot it with 2 rounds, right? 2 or 3 people had issues on the timing on that, just trying to rush to get stuff done. A couple people left 1 hole on it, etc. Again, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm letting everyone else make mistakes just because that seems to be what's happening, right? Coming to this position with a really good, tight, strong hand grip, shoot reactively on this guy on the way in, judging my work really carefully, letting my sight tell me when I'm allowed to shoot. And then I'm going to eat a couple Charlies on these partials here with 1 hand just to stay safe and keep off the white and the black back here. Right? Continuing with the same strategy, just trying to stay consistent, let everyone else make mistakes. And at this point, I'm going into the last stage, so we'll go look at what that looks like. And the pressure is really mounting. You can see trying to take very conservative plans that are hard to make mistakes on, but the pressure is for sure a factor at this point. Okay, so last stage. So based on how this stage is set up, what's going to go on, I've actually done a breakdown of this video before, but essentially I'm starting in this position right here. I'm going to go to this window, this position, this back left corner, and then zoom across the back over to the other corner over there, where from the back right corner you could see this big steel array back here, but you could shoot it from about 7 or 8 yards closer by adding a yard or 2 of motion. And like I described, because I'm not really in a position, I'm leading by a little bit at this point, I'm not in a position that I need to make a play. I'm going to let everyone else kind of spin their wheels and make mistakes on a plan like that. I'll play it the safe way, just try to drive them down first shot. And at this point, if I do that, pending an amazing run from someone else, there's not really anything I stand to blow myself out of this win more than someone else stands to take it from me, just based on how the scores are. So, again, playing it safe, trying to just plug good points, and not make any catastrophic errors. Let's see what happens. Right, not a bad run, right? Definitely, again, far from perfect, playing it safe in every way possible. So I come into this first position. I told myself visually what I needed to see was green. Was at a minimum, I need to see green on white back here, which probably wasn't quite enough detail. I should have probably referenced my front sight through my rear sight while still looking at the spot I want to hit on that plate. So I missed 2 shots on that, and then, because the first 2 shots went pretty shaky, I just stuck to the same scheme. Just took really tight shots, so I don't have any more pickup shots than any of the rest of these poppers. I shoot this one guy here, look for effect, make sure it starts to tip before I decide to get moving, because I do not want to leave something standing. Enter this position. You could have shot this stuff over here, kind of on the way into this spot, but I thought it made it easier to be facing in this direction when I ended this array, because that made this movement backwards a little easier. So I came in and took this kind of awkward target first. And that also made it so it was a sure thing. This target right here was really tight to access unless you were really deep in the left side of this position. So that's why I chose to shoot this in a bit of an unconventional order. Had to do a reload out of this spot. I'm going to do like sort of a skip step back, really prioritizing the reload just so I know it's completely done. At this point, right, my eye looks exactly where I want my foot to land right here. You can see that's exactly where I'm looking, right? I come back to look at this spot. Once it's a sure thing I'm going to get there, you see my hips start to turn, my grip comes together, and my eyes are back up on this target over here. I sort of looked at brown on this first target. This left array over here was an open target, essentially, and then a partial, right? So as my eye came up, I kind of just got hung up on the corner and shot like a Charlie Delta or something like that off the jump. So I throw 3 shots at that, 2 really nicely played shots in the partial. You can see I'm not in a great position to get moving back in this direction right here, where my feet are distributed this way. I need to go in this direction, but you also kind of need your feet to be distributed this way just to get access to these targets. So I do a only quasi-necessary drop step out of this position right here, so they can get moving on to the last position, just running as hard as I can. When I come in over here, this array is set up the same way where it's open target partial. I'm going to shoot this one first, even though it presents second, just so that I can enter and make sure my feet are completely stable. See, I'm aiming really early. Gun is up, mounted, so the second this wall is out of my way, I can start shooting. Partial, and then 2 open targets at about 20 yards, which I shoot very carefully to try to collect some fairly easy points relative to the stage. And that was that. A couple guys that were really close. The guy that finished second, Mr. Nils, chose to shoot the aggressive plan where he shot that steal from this position here. Tried to take that aggressive play, which is, crazy ambitious. There's nothing really else to do in that position, but there was a super, super aggressive plan that required a perfect or better execution to do what it needed to do, and that didn't quite work out. So spoils go to the victor. This was a great experience, obviously. It was a really, really interesting match to shoot. I know it took me a little bit too long to get this video out, but hopefully you guys enjoy it. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, feel free to shoot me a message. I'm going to try to be better about doing these when the information is fresher in my mind, but that's sort of the cliff notes. You can see the strategy that's at play there. I'm not paying attention to what anyone else is doing, really, other than to observe where they're making mistakes and know how to avoid them. That's really the biggest thing that won this for me. Hopefully this is helpful for you guys. Later.